Hi there, and welcome to yet another Shameless Mayhem presenting an Aristeia round table. And this particular round table is all about up the meta. We
Screw
don't
the
really
meta.
care what other people think.
Well, it's less that, and I mean, to some extent, that's absolutely the
So
the
today
stance.
we've got Kipahuligan, Chikahiro, and BanzaiZAP, and
well as-
running the board as our disembodied voice is Primus.
And it's a little bit less of just being inherently disagreeable. I mean, personally, I'm definitely of that ilk. And more, some of us are longtime war gamers, some of us are longtime fighting gamers.
Yep.
And in games that, fighting games in particular, are my history, and they tend to develop these hardcore tiers in which people start to just utterly disregard people past halfway down.
That's what we mean by meta.
and-
Who's
and-
a good character, who's not a good character.
Who's top tier? Who's second? Who's scrub tier? There's a lot of weight and baggage that goes on with this, with pretty much any competitive game. And the problem is, and Maximilian Dude and a number of other kind of long-standing figures of the fighting game community have actually come out and said, you know what, y'all, this is stupid. And this is kind of the big thing is, when you're getting into a game, it's kind of natural to want to know who's best. Because I don't want to pick a scrub. Gosh, that'd be terrible. And people will ask that, but it's not a clear-cut thing. It never has been. And in
Especially
a
in a
good
game like this.
and in a good game, there never will be. Ideally. So
So
I
you're
think
telling me in Go, white is not
Better
the better
to play
choice
than black.
Like I shouldn't. Oh, they're equal. Interesting. Sorry, that was a very
That's
silly joke.
that's actually an interesting theory, and that's why there are patches and changes to say the handicap. But that's getting to something else. So Mike, we're both and Primus, we're all longtime fighting game characters. Did you play much fighting games?
Not much.
Okay. So Ken and Ryu, top tier, overrated. So boring, it doesn't matter.
What game are we talking about?
Yeah,
There you go.
You get so many different and that's the same with board games like this. It's going to depend on which scenario you're playing,
Right.
and how whether or not you're using any of the AGL mods that are available that you can find online in the forums and on Discord. But in the vein of we're a little bit anti-meta, mostly because isn't it more fun to learn the game well enough that you can
use
take
anybody.
the scrub characters, and be effective enough to, even if it's only frustrate the living hell out of your opponent, do something that's fun and effective for you as a gamer. And in that vein, we were recently looking at the first season AGL standings of how the picks went. And I believe they came up with these two teams. I know these are going to be a little bit hard to see, but we have Wild Bill, Musashi, Valkyrie, and Hexer on team top tier. And over on the right side, we've got Tao Wu, Bichet, Merter, and Eclipse. And Primus and BanzaiZAP have had a couple of head-to-head games matching these two teams up against each other.
We did not actually use the top tier, but we did several games using the actual bottom tier
I'm sorry.
as a team.
I didn't realize that you had.
That's one thing we were considering doing.
But they apparently have done fairly well and been pretty effective.
The
So
top tier team won one out of the two games it was played.
So there's always going to be a way for you to take those characters, like taking Dan Hibiki and beating the crap out of somebody with
Dan
or
Hibiki
Ryu.
is one of my favorites.
As well. I mean, I used to do nothing but random
I'm going to assume
selects.
that's a
'cause
fighting game character.
It is. The fighting games are just in my opinion, the most hardcore tier system there is. People get utterly obsessed with them.
And there's money at stake. I understand that.
And to some extent, that's been altered by the ability for fighting games to update themselves online now.
Almost
and so,
any game with characters starts to get that way, where
Yeah.
people look for the best character and then scorn people who want to use another character because they're fun, not because they're best. The term Hanzo main became an insult just because he was considered the not a good character.
And so, as a parallel to board games like Aristeia, the scenarios become the update balances, the balance updates. Take Blitz, run Blitz, and suddenly picking some of those different tiered characters becomes a lot more viable, maybe do something pretty impressive. Same with King of the Hill, Capture the Flag. They all play so differently that those teams become more effective. I really want to, and some of you have discussed with me on Discord and given me some good ideas about running Team Poison. I sat down to play Blitz the other day, and I picked Team Poison thinking, I really want to play Team Poison. Then I looked at Team Poison. I'd like to pick another team, please.
The scenario did not work.
These are terrible for Blitz. So, you know, and the general consensus on Discord is my friends are going to hate me when I play Team Poison, but that's okay. They already do. So, you know, the meta to me has always been almost an insult to a player. And when games like this that can hit a point where they're not necessarily solved, as in we know every possible combination of moves that can happen within the boundaries of a game, too complex to do that, at least at this point in time. The abilities and the synergies between them make this game able to reach a level similar to solved. You've got a hard counter to almost anything you can play in the game, and the draft style selection pre-game helps you
actually
utilize
lets
that.
you hard counter
Exactly.
what's
So I would want to counter that too. One of the things that's Maximilian touched on this that comes up with tiers is everyone asks for the tiers, but they never talk about the skill level.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, there are characters that might be, oh, that character's terrible, but terrible for a beginner.
May I introduce you to Bixie?
Exactly.
She's a great character, but only after you've really seen her in action.
Right, and there's some characters that, oh my gosh, this person's overpowered to a beginner, and what is broken at one play level might be fine at another, and someone who seems completely irrelevant becomes just an amazing tool at a high level play. So the problem with tier lists and people making these discussions is they're making a lot of assumptions. It's not a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I've been playing for quite some time. I'm not a bad player. I take one look at Bixie and I'm like, I'm scared to use her. And it's not because I think she's bad, but I know enough to look at her and say there's a lot more work that goes on to her to get the same mileage out.
If you don't play her right, she can fail a lot harder than somebody else you don't play, like Pavardi.
Right.
You don't have to play perfectly, but she'll still get work done.
Like Pavardi.
Whereas Bixie, if you don't play her right, she could be completely useless for a good chunk of the game.
Right.
You're not sure what to do.
And that is something really to consider.
But in the hands of a good player, they can be terrifying, especially depending on the scenario. So whether you call them top tier or not really is more of an expression of how well you can play with that character.
Right.
Exactly. And that's why I kind of, like I said, I've always looked at tiers as a little bit of an insult to the player. If
It's a personal thing.
Tao Wu is there as a linchpin to perform some amazing, impressive thing that's going to kill my enemy's characters and really annoy him.
Well,
then,
now that Li Gong's showing up, Tao Wu's little smokes running around becomes much worse.
Li Gong is going to be so threatening. Ooh,
But
I like him.
Sorry to digress.
Right.
No, that's okay.
and I think that's another thing
We do that.
with Aristeia is like that team right there, the top characters. Yeah, sure, they're most commonly picked, but I don't see any of their support structure. What's the rest of the team like?
Who are they working with?
So any one of those bottom tier characters could have been working with them and getting them at that point.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of stuff that's in this sort of team game. It'd be like Marvel vs. Capcom or King of Fighters, in that when you look at tiers, you're only seeing one aspect. You're not seeing the whole story. And you're not seeing the scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly when you look at the top levels of the AGL, you're seeing some of the best players in the world. You're not seeing you necessarily. You're not seeing the people you could be playing with around you. It's academically.
Local meta.
It is academically interesting,
Ours is small.
but it is not nearly as informative or as vital as it often gets made out to be.
if any of you want to come to Maui and
Yeah.
increase the size of our meta, feel free to drop by and play a game of
We have an
Aristeia with
interesting
us.
situation where on Maui, you're looking at the main player, so
Yeah.
we don't get a lot of other perspectives without the internet audience. So that's why it took us so long, for example, to figure out both Bichet and Hammerhead, is because on paper, none of us really knew how they were supposed to be played.
Mm-hmm.
But once we sort of unlocked what they did, we realized how versatile and powerful they are, especially in specific situations.
Same for me with Gaia. A recent round really helped me understand how amazing she can be paired as a linchpin for things that really irritate your opponent. Lockdown lanes cause
It's
huge
just
damage.
looking at the card, it's just a list of restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
But once you see how those gets applied in the later group, and depending on who you take her with, bring her with someone like Musashi or Murter and drop them in the middle of the opponent's group, that type of thing.
Well, I think the thing too is when you look at the tier lists, you can say, "Oh, damage, damage, damage," and I think that really stifles the creativity the game has.
Except, of course,
inherent.
Hexer being at the top of the tier list.
It's because she heals.
Yeah, right. Just keep
good
thinking
healer.
that.
Look at the
Just
paint
keep
job.
thinking that. But yeah,
So-
other than Hexer, most
Right.
people are concentrating on how much damage can they do.
Right. So real quick then, I had a friend of mine. I think this was back before Evo was Evo. It was the B series of tournaments. The Hawaii delegation that was going to represent Hawaii in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I forget what the current meta was for the game, but they figured. It was
Storm,
weird.
Sentinel, Magneto.
Yeah, well-
the meta is always Wolverine, Magneto. It doesn't matter.
Right, but they figured out one technique that actually got them to win that year, and it changed everything. In Capcom versus SNK 2, there was a bug found that Capcom, no, that's legal, don't worry about it. No one's going to be able to do it regularly. And once
Someone
it got
regular.
figured out how to do it
Becomes a staple of
reliably,
play.
because finding in players are nuts, we are, it changed everything.
Yep.
And all the old tier lists that people had worked so hard to figure out, and this is the truth, got totally upended. And that's something you need to be ready for as well, is all you really need is something that takes a mediocre character, someone figures it out and changes everything.
Something like the addition of a Berserker character that can drop into the middle of
That-
your
that's-
entire crew and pull three die attacks without any tactics. Like, yeah,
You're
That-
looking
that-
forward to
that's
it.
just little
You know,
things.
right,
Little
that-
things.
Right,
I'll
right.
shake it up
But
all
if
right.
you're only ever looking at the tier lists and looking at the top, and you're not looking at the possibilities and thinking about possibilities, you're not going to be the one who comes up with that.
Mm-hmm.
It stifles creativity, and it's going to be common sense. Get these, don't listen to it, because the people who win fighting game tournaments or really a lot of competitive things, they're not settling for common sense.
And as you say, when you go through those tiers, you're building teams out of a limited set of characters, when in reality, the team composition significantly changes where you sit within that scale.
And
So-
even the tactics
Yeah,
on top of
tactics that
that.
you choose, and the ability, like with the addition of the TCOM decks.
and Sterling.
That
And the
changes
Sterling
a lot.
deck, the
Right.
meta in this changes significantly. That's one of the suggestions that I've been getting online, and I was going to do it in Blitz yesterday until I realized this is a terrible idea. Was to run, well, not yesterday, but the other day, was to run Tao Wu with Team Poison and run the TCOM deck so that I could cycle through and make sure I had all of the appropriate high poison, high damage cards to drop tokens and cause. Oh yeah, Oberon. Sorry,
Oberon,
thank
okay.
you. To cause some serious problems with Team Poison. And I believe Chikahiro and I are going to play a game of Assault later today and film it, and I'll probably be running Team Poison there. So if anybody wants to actually check out the results of
We'll
what
do a
happens,
link card.
that'll be
That
on
sounds
there.
right.
Yeah, we'll try and do something new. You click a thing or
It'll be above your head.
somewhere over there, and maybe we'll be able to make that happen.
But yeah, that's
So really, when it comes
Screw
to Aristeia,
metas.
screw metas.
screw 'em.
Yeah, we're
There's
just not
so
fans.
much going on with it. If you choose just a meta team, then you will be easily countered. Because
Well-
at that point, everybody knows what those characters can do.
Well, I
But
think-
if you're playing interesting characters that are fun, you're more likely to
right.
surprise
I think that's the
people.
biggest thing for me is you'll get bored, and it's like
I'll
played-
never get bored of action.
I
Sorry, I don't care if she's top tier Monkey, I'll never
Yeah.
get bored of action.
No, seriously. I mean, I used to play Tekken because that's what everyone did, and I only stuck with certain characters. I got bored. And
But then you start looking at the characters, wow, that's interesting. And you start playing fun stuff.
I played
Yeah.
Mocha
That's
Jin.
why we do that.
Well, something I'd like to bring up as well, as we're about to close things out, is there's a big difference between competitive play and friendly play. You know, if we brought, we are all pretty much longtime Magic players as well, and we play decks that are stupid and ridiculous and are not,
Make each other mad.
are not.
They're not legal.
Most of them are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Standard
Well,
format?
no, standard is a rotating format within
right.
a time.
Vintage they'd be legal.
So it depends on the
Okay.
game. But we're all-time Magic players. We play a lot of vintage kitchen table stuff, and we always thought about streaming it, but we probably play it really wrong because we all learned how to play in the '90s, and we haven't changed how we do anything. So that's a little bit of an assist for us in finding ways to change the meta, because the wording and abilities is significant. Finding those weird translation errors that nobody's errated yet, and abusing them can cause some serious problems until someone on the forum is like, wait, no, you have to stop doing that.
No, you just wrote it wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that's where it comes from reading the rules.
Yeah.
So, thanks for joining us this time. We do this live on Twitch TV/Shameless Mayhem, as well as archived on YouTube.com/Shameless Mayhem. We've been talking about how Aristeia is above the meta, even though there are lists of what people play. You shouldn't let that affect what you want to play.
Screw the
Interesting
meta.
teams.
Have fun.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you soon for another round table.
Have a great day.